The restaurant industry has called on government to take responsible decisions that won't cripple the sector. SABC specialist news reporter Nozintombi Miya spoke to Wendy Alberts of the Restaurant Association.
There's a real possibility that this could be a real scene for the restaurant industry. Empty chairs and empty tables if further lockdown restrictions are imposed. And to talk to us a little bit more about this, we have Ms. Wendy Alberts, who is with the Restaurant Association of South Africa, and she really has been quite vocal about some of the key issues and concerns that the industry has mooted to the President as well to the NCC. NCCC. Thank you so much for joining me, Wendy.
Thank you so much.
I just want to get an idea of what your initial reaction is to what the President said. He hasn't, increased the lockdown restrictions so far, but he has sort of given us a timer. What are your thoughts?
We would like to say thank you to the President for his good leadership. You could see there was an economical catastrophe that sat on our doorsteps, the decimation of the international trade, which is so imperative to tourism and to the restaurants and to our sector, and as a springboard to using it for some type of economical recovery. That has now been lost, and you can imagine that it puts a lot more pressure on us. The chaos, the panic, and the complete uncertainty within our industry really lent itself to very difficult conversations that we had over the last couple of days. Notwithstanding that, whilst we understand that there has been this new variant that has been uncovered, there should be responsible reporting on it that doesn't have this impact. Now we as an industry are relying heavily on the domestic tourism as a point of recovery. And when all this noise is made about potential lockdowns, when we've been working hand in hand and we've got all this information that's been presented to us for the last 2 years, we really should be having a different narrative with government. So, we're now on our fourth wave. We've learned from all the information, all the statistical data, all the conversations that lockdowns simply don't work. So to force the industry into another lockdown, it seems completely prejudiced. It seems that we are being victimized. There's no need for it. What we need to do is we need to be having conversations about preparing the healthcare system like we did from the onset. The first reason for putting us into lockdown was to cite the healthcare system to be responsible, to have enough beds, to have the extension of the hospitals, the triage tents, to ensure that they are prepared, that they can manage, whether it's trauma cases that come as a result of alcohol or whether it's COVID cases for admission. We need to keep the economy going, and we need to look at ways that we simply do not just switch our businesses on and off. What we've seen over the last 2 years is this irresponsible, unpredicted shutdown on our economy and particularly in our industry certainly decimates the restaurant sector. We lose jobs, we create panic, we get people that are certainly uncertain of a future within restaurants. The pressure on unemployment, there's no TERS, there's no UIF. And this has set aside all the other long list of challenges we've had over the last year. We talk about the electricity cuts, we talk about water cuts, we talk about liquor licenses, we look at the chaos that we're currently having with the liquor boards. We look at the inability for us to pay back the debt. There was no debt deferment given. It's not like government said, right, you're only trading at 12%, you only need to pay 12% of your leases or 12% of your bank loans, or you can cut any of the contractual obligations you've got. We've been forced hand in hand to pay 100% of our debt with 12% income. So we certainly need to limit further economical sabotage and suicide on our industry.
All right. Wendy, you've really given quite a nice picture overview of the situation and some of the challenges. But at the end of the day, looking at the cause or what initially, led to this cascade of events, there's been criticism towards the virologists and the scientific community for jumping the gun with making the announcement of this new variant, which has now led to a situation where we see first of all, countries literally shutting down Southern African countries from entering into, their countries, which has had such a massive impact on the tourism sector, on the restaurant sector, because now you're looking inwards to try and recoup the monies that we should have been making at this period, which is the start to our festive season, which is typically quite a valuable season for the industry.
Absolutely. Last year, this time, we found ourselves in the same boat. The narrative is the same. The narrative is simply, let's just take a blanket lockdown. Blanket lockdowns don't work. What we certainly see is when chaos happens like this, people rush off to bottle stores, they rush off to supermarkets, they fill their homes. And then when lockdown happens, we just shift the ability for us to be able to have that commercial business within our restaurants to trade and for people to be in an environment that is safe, where the protocols are met, the the directive met social distancing, and all the necessary ailments that government has asked us to tick on our box, we've done. We've been respectful, we've been supportive, everything they've asked, social distancing, remodel our businesses. We've gone from takeaways to deliveries to putting our restaurants outside, to picnic spots, to road houses. Everything they've asked us to do, we've remodeled at every turn at our expense with no support. We've been in support. We've encouraged the vaccinations. We've looked at what it is. We've worked hand in hand with government. We've engaged with government. We said, talk to us. There's 2 years' worth of information that we can use now to show you that simply by locking down liquor and shutting down the restaurants, it shifts it to illicit trade, which takes off the GDP, it takes off the tax market, and it allows so many people to go on unemployment.
Yeah. Wendy, just to cut you in there before we wrap up, the knock-on effect further is that there's a real possibility that due to the president announcing the possibility of lockdown mandates, that restaurants could be further impacted by patrons being forced to produce vaccine cards before they can access restaurants. What are your thoughts around that?
There's a broader conversation than simply adding another element onto the checklist. This is complete advocation of responsibility that government has to keep the economy going, to keep our restaurant sector going, to keep employment, to keep people feeling proud that they have confidence in government, that they have confidence that they have a job, that they have security, that they have stability. Right now, with all the further threats and continuous threats on the various waves that we have, we just destroy the morale of the country. We as leaders of this country really need to start building up. We need to have these critical conversations with government. We need to look at ways that we leverage to improve our status. When we reopened to international trade, international visitors were flooding in. They were so happy to come back to South Africa. We're a loved country. We've got beautiful cuisine. We've got a beautiful landscape. We've got some of the most iconic destinations to come to. And when we do this irresponsible campaigning, what happened this last week, and we destroy that, we destroy hope for people who have been hanging on by a thread. We destroy the hope within the restaurants that have been looking so forward to this time to trade through this difficult component to resuscitate their businesses. And any type of lockdown now will be financial suicide for our industry. It will be the last time that we will ever be able to recover. It will be the final bloodbath of employment and restaurants.
But Wendy, there's also a real possibility that you've just been granted a brief reprieve. The President says he's going to give us feedback in the next week or two. But there's a real possibility that further lockdown levels are going to be imposed. If this is the last straw, what then happens in the next week or 2 weeks when more restrictions are imposed?
We're not going to accept lip service. We have been so diplomatic. We have been so eloquent with government. At every turn when they've asked us, remodel, please ensure, sanitize, protocols, social distancing, registers, temperature checking, contact tracing, vaccinations, all those lists have been checked. There was one responsibility that government needed to do for our industry, and that was to prepare the healthcare system. We've done our part. Has government done their part? So we want to have these conversations about how quickly they're going to modify this healthcare system, how they're going to extend the beds, extend those hospitals, ensure that there's enough oxygen, ensure that there's enough ventilators, because we create this splurge of complete and utter panic, and we put the economy under such pressure, and we are never compensated. We are never adequately prepared. We've had ample time for this prediction, and now we really need support. We cannot tolerate another lockdown.
All right, thank you so much. We leave it there. Wendy Alberts from the Restaurant Association of South Africa, diplomatic to government with regards to ensuring that the restaurants associations have complied with all the requirements by government, she says. However, restaurant owners are saying that they will not tolerate any further lockdowns, and it's up to government now to ensure that all protocols and due processes are put in place to ensure less of an impact on restaurants and the economy of restaurants and the knock-on effect this has on jobs. With that, it's back to you in the studio.